I know you're excited to get to know our next guest, but before we dive into the Coffee Monday podcast, I think it's only fitting we talk about just that, coffee. Dutch Bros coffee, to be specific. The holidays are here at Dutch Bros with their holiday trio lineup of festive holiday cups and tons of holiday drinks. I'm a sucker for a hot holiday drink, and Dutch Bros has some delicious ones this season. All things peppermint sprinkled into most every drink, including actual peppermint sprinkles as an optional add-on. Sipping on my favorite, a peppermint oat milk latte, makes me feel like it's officially Christmas time. So grab yourself a festive Dutch drink and follow along at Dutch Bros Fresno on Instagram and on their Dutch app to get into the holiday spirit this season. Coffee Monday is more than a podcast. It's a movement to reshape the way we approach Mondays and the week ahead. It's about embracing the reality that work doesn't have to dominate our lives. It's about finding that sweet spot where passion, purpose, and a cup of motivation connect. Filmed and recorded in California's Central Valley, join me, your host, Ray Pardini Matson, as I invite thriving professionals to share their stories of how they're crafting a life that's both vibrant and balanced. Jimmy, this is fun. We're just going to roll in and get started. Thanks for being here.
I'm excited to be here.
I know. We spent the weekend together at a friend's birthday party, and here we are, recovered and ready to take on Monday.
Somehow we made it to Monday morning, and yeah.
Love it. So for those that don't know, we are cousins. I'm really bad at knowing like first, second, third, you know?
I haven't, I couldn't tell you.
All right.
Yeah.
And then the once removed thing totally throws me off. So our dads are first cousins.
Our dads are first cousins, yeah.
Both grew up in the restaurant
industry. The audience can tell us what that makes us, I guess.
Exactly. We both grew up in the restaurant industry, and you've since grown your career in the industry. So that's super awesome, and can't wait to dive into that. Tell everybody about your upbringing. Grew up in Fresno,
yes.
Born and raised.
Yes, grew up in Fresno, born and raised. Just, normal kids, sports, and a little bit of this and that. My dad was in the catering and banquets business. He did primarily, he started his business off-premise catering out of a warehouse. Then he went into restaurants as well. And then he ended up purchasing a facility where we do banquets, and catering banquets. That's been his wheelhouse for his career. I grew up, really didn't. I did work in his restaurants a little bit in high school.
You did?
Front of the house.
Okay.
And I was a server. I was a host. I was a busser, and after all of that, I decided I do not want to go into this business. And
that's funny.
I didn't dislike it, but I just, I felt I was going to go to college. My parents were always like, do something other than restaurants.
Yeah. Right.
And so I went out and explored, and really took a couple serving jobs while I was in college, and kind of confirmed that I just wasn't that, super into it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So wait, pause, rewind. Grew up in Fresno.
Yeah.
I also worked for my dad in high school. And I do feel like there's something to be said, like everybody should have some sort of experience in food service. Don't you think?
Absolutely. You'll be a better person,
right?
and a better contributor to society, and much nicer.
Exactly.
If you've done that.
100% agreed. So you went to college at LMU, Loyola.
Yes. Marymount, Los
University
Angeles.
in LA. So just setting the stage for people that don't know that. So you're living in LA. Also have heard many jokes about like it's harder to be a waiter or be in food service in LA than it is to be an actor, because a lot of people that are kind of trying to make it become, bartenders, waiters, service staff and whatnot. Yeah. So you were able to get experience in working for certain restaurants, or do you remember?
I did a couple short stints as a server. I did one Italian restaurant. Really what happened was I studied abroad in Italy my junior year, and I came back and I was like, all right, I want to start cooking. because that was what ignited all my, passion for, Italian food and cooking in the kitchen. And I was like, all right, I'm going to get a job as a cook while I'm still in college. And but I wanted to go to these really nice high-end restaurants. And they just looked at me kind of funny, like, you look like a server type. And so I took a couple serving jobs. I was just, and then I took a few serving jobs, and then I kind of reconfirmed. I'm like, all right, I don't know, I want to cook, but I don't know if this restaurant thing is going to, be my path, because the serving thing and the whole front of the house thing just wasn't really for me. And now I appreciate it from the other perspective. But then after I graduated from college, then I really was like, all right, I'm going to dedicate myself to the cooking part. I did find a job in a kitchen in a really nice restaurant. And then I was like, oh, this whole time I realized, I belong in the back.
Yeah,
I belong in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And so it was at that point that the rest is kind of, history from
and
there.
you felt drawn to that part of the business.
Yeah, it's just, you got a bunch of weirdos, in the kitchen like me, and it's just a great bunch of characters, and you're all kind of pursuing the same thing to make beautiful, delicious food, and it's a lot of fun, and I think that was the thing about cooking and being in the kitchen. It's just it was a lot of fun. And
I bet the energy is just irreplaceable.
It's great.
Feeding off each other.
It's great. It's like kind of like being on a sports team or anything, along those lines.
So was Mozza your first job back of the house or not?
Yes.
That's so cool.
First job back of the house. I, was at a point about a year or so after college where I was like, all right, I got to do this. What do I need to do? Do I need to go to culinary school? And I really wanted to avoid that because I was like, all right, I've already gone to college. I'm tired of school. I want to get into the world. I want to just work. And I didn't have any cooking experience, even though I had front of the house experience. And they had a Craigslist ad for Mario Batali and Nancy Silverton opening this restaurant. And I was like, great. I'm a huge fan of these guys. And this is exactly the kind of food that I want to cook. I responded to a Craigslist ad. I walked in the back door with a couple of knives, and they hired me as a prep cook for a minimum wage. And I just kind of try to make myself useful so that I could stick around and learn the rest of it.
That's amazing. Craigslist. Because that was the way then.
That was it. Yeah.
That's amazing. So this is after you graduated college.
Yeah.
So what did you do? Where did you live? What part of LA? I don't even know that.
Well, at the time, I was living in Santa Monica.
Okay.
And then the restaurant was in sort of Highland and Melrose. So it was like Hancock Park, West Hollywood area. So then I moved to that side of town to be closer. Yeah.
Love it. And at what point did you meet my favorite person?
Right.
Your wife.
Yes.
Jenny Kim.
Yeah. So I actually met Jenny about 4 or 5 months after I took that job. So, that's how I found out she was a really good person, because she accepted me for being a lowly minimum wage prep cook.
Yeah.
It wasn't the easiest sell.
You met through mutual friends, right?
We were just we were both at a bar with our own group of friends separately.
I thought there were like some friends in your groups that knew each other. No?
There was no completely
Okay, so
random.
how did you start talking?
We were just kind of, we were at a bar, and so we were chatting, we met, and
I love it.
The conversation turned to food pretty quickly, and so that we kind of connected over that. I think she was like the catering manager at her sorority or something.
She just told me
something
that.
along
I didn't
those
know
lines.
That.
And I just tried to roll with that, get as far as possible.
And the rest is history.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yep.
So you're working at Mozza. How long were you there?
Yeah, I was there for a little over 4 years.
Wow. That's
awesome. So just it was just basically school for me,
Yeah.
just going through every station in the restaurant, learning how to run the kitchen, and while also being exposed to the way the whole thing operates. And it was a really good environment.
I
To be
bet.
in.
So cool. So did you work directly with Nancy a lot? Or
Yeah. I mean, back then, I got to the restaurant about 2 weeks after they opened, and Nancy was working every night at the time at the mozzarella bar. And so I started as a prep cook, and after about 5 or 6 months, I got moved to the line, and my first job on the line was to make toast for Nancy. So she had her mozzarella station.
Yeah.
And you have basically 3 stations out in the restaurant, which is it's garde manger, so it was the toast and sort of salumi station, the salad, and then Nancy's mozzarella station. And so I worked out there, making toast, making salads, making the mozzarella dishes for probably 8 or 9 months. And
Wow.
Nancy was there, working. She was like a regular line cook. She worked 5 or so nights a week at that
Right.
point. And it was just really fortunate timing for me to be able to be exposed to, her and her thinking and her just everyday way of going about her work.
Yeah, I bet. And just seeing her in action, right? And I mean, right when you open a restaurant, it's like presence is key.
Yeah.
So like that's cool that you were able to experience that with her, that she was there all the time and you were right there alongside her. So cool. And so you guys obviously still keep in touch.
Yeah.
Fast forward, what? Probably like, I don't know, 15 years?
Yeah. Yeah.
You just recently had her at Annex for an evening with Nancy Silverton, which was seriously so amazing.
Thank you.
Unreal. I was fortunate enough to be a guest, and it was just a dream. And it's so cool to bring her here to Fresno. So how did that come about?
Yeah, we were. We've kept in touch over the years, and her chef now is somebody that basically the head chef at the Osteria, and is basically her right hand person is Liz, who was there the other night as well. And Liz and I started out together at Mozza all those years ago, and Liz continued to rise through the ranks and become the executive chef. And so we're still in touch, and
Love that.
And I do go to visit them when I go to LA. I try to stop by, and we were there earlier this year, and I've noticed, Nancy, they're doing a lot of events now, and they're traveling around a lot. And I thought, well, why not do one at Annex? And we were having Jenny's birthday dinner at Mozza, and I was talking to Liz. I said, maybe you guys should come, and let's figure something out. And she goes, let's do a pop-up. I mean, it was instant. And so we just scheduled it right away, and off we went.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Sold out very quickly.
Yeah, it did.
Rightfully so.
Yeah.
So cool. And was that like a surreal moment for you? You're like, wow, this
It
is
was
like
a
full
surreal
circle,
moment.
right?
Yeah, it was a surreal moment for sure, because I ended up, we were all there kind of doing the same thing we did all those years ago. The same, I wanted the menu to be classic Mozza. So we were doing like the burrata dish that we used to do, hundreds of every night there. And it was funny because I probably booked way too many people than I should have that night for a 6-course dinner. And it was supposed to be a little more fun and relaxing the first couple of hours, but it turned into a very intense dinner service.
I bet.
And I went right back to my old job to just handing Nancy toast and having her do her thing. So that was kind of cool.
That's fun.
Yeah.
It was great. I mean, so awesome. So cool. So that's great. You guys get to stay in touch too. Because you know, sometimes out of sight, out of mind, right? You leave LA, you leave the scene, if you will, and you just don't get to see these people as much. So that's great that you were able to kind of stay connected with them. So you were at Mozza for 4 years-ish, right? And then is that when you came to Fresno, or what happened after that?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much. I came back to Fresno after that.
And what was the thought there?
The thought there was, Jenny and I were engaged, and we were starting to think about next steps. And I think we were both from small towns, her being from Chico originally. And me from Fresno. And I think we had the idea that Fresno would be a good place for us to raise a family.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Rightfully so.
And so I thought that, we decided to come back. And my thinking was that I wanted to do my own thing of one form or another. Mm-hmm. And at the time, I didn't really know what it was going to be, but I knew that, my dad was in the business. I felt that I could make a contribution there while I figured out what I wanted to do, next. Yeah.
And for those that don't know, you have a younger brother, Jeff, who his plan was also to work in the business in some capacity, right? Mm-hmm. So at this point, he's probably graduated too. Was he back yet?
Jeff came back before I did.
Oh,
yeah,
he did. Okay.
He was graduated probably 3 years after me, but then he came back to Fresno right after college, and so he was back for a couple of years at least before I came back. Yeah.
Got it. So how was that, kind of stepping into the family business after being gone for so long? Right?
It was interesting.
I bet.
It was really interesting. And it was, Jeff had already kind of started the concession side of the business. So it was, and then my dad needed help in catering. So I just jumped right in there. And so from the very beginning, we've been in our own lanes, which has been really nice. And then, so I helped my dad out in catering, which was great because I learned a lot about that side of the business, off-premise catering, which is a whole different beast than restaurants. And I didn't have that experience before, like working at Mozza in LA. And so it was a nice couple of years that I was able to dive in and learn.
That's awesome. And you get all like a very well-rounded experience, front of the house, back of the house, restaurant, catering, all the things. And at what point did you decide, well, you said you always kind of knew you wanted to do your own thing, right?
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, at what point did you know your own thing was going to be like your own restaurant concept, right?
Yeah.
Like versus maybe, and then from there it could be so many different types of restaurants, right? So how was the concept of Annex born?
Well, when I moved back, I thought maybe I'll do, I always had something smaller in mind, like a sandwich shop or something kind of casual and counter service. But for me, what always drove me to get the job at Mozza and then to open Annex was the love and passion for Italy and for Italian food. And when I moved to Fresno, living here for a couple of years, I really thought I was like, oh, do I really want to get into this full service dinner restaurant business? Because it is a lot of the things that you hear about. It is difficult, as you know from your family experience. Yeah. And I just thought, well, what's the worst that can happen? I think I love it enough to keep doing it, and I really want to do it. And I really felt that I could make a contribution to the restaurant scene here in doing what we wanted to do. And so we had the Pardini's Cafe space, which was my dad was willing to kind of give that up, and
which was a big deal, right?
He was convinced enough to take a chance on Annex on that space. And so after a few years of convincing, we made it happen.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like so many people over the years have fond memories of Pardini's Cafe. So for that to kind of transition, I bet it was a big deal for your dad, right? Kind of passing the baton, if you will.
Yeah.
So I love the story about the name of the Annex Kitchen. Can you share that?
Yeah, the Annex is what we say it is. It is an annex to the building. And, my grandfather he had Pardini's restaurant in the 70s, which is now a banquet facility. And then he added on basically a 24-hour diner, which was Pardini's coffee shop. And then they sold the business in the late 70s to somebody else. And in the 90s, my dad and grandfather bought the building back, and what was Pardini's coffee shop became eventually Pardini's Grill and then Pardini's Cafe. And it was always that just little annex to the core business. And originally I'm throwing around ideas for Italian names, but I
know,
just felt
that's why I'm
I
wondering.
really wanted to pay homage to the family history there and the building itself. And that's where
I love it.
I came up with that.
I love it.
Yeah.
So I always remember how old Annex is because it was right around the time you had Preston, your son, your first, my godson, proud.
There we go.
So 8.5 to be specific, years old, very cool. And if you could describe your experience and like maybe what you thought it would be and how it's actually turned out, like what would you say looking back on the last 8.5 years?
Experience in the restaurant?
Yeah, or just like Annex as a whole. Is it what you dreamed of?
Yeah.
Is it more? Is it different? How,
Yeah, I think it is. I think it turned out as good as I could have hoped.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And with every business venture, as I'm sure you know, there's your trials and tribulations and things you have to overcome. And I think that when I first opened it, now we have 2 restaurants, but when I first opened it and tried to get it going, I was like, this is great, but why did I do this? I'm married to this. It's so hard. I'm micromanaging every aspect of it. But as time went on, we were able to build a team, and I was able to get my head above water and start focusing on other
right,
things.
is the team. Like some of your team, familiar faces that I've seen over the years have been with you for years, which is such a testament to you and your leadership and the concept as a whole and the operation. Like I feel like you can't do it without like a strong team, because then you're not.
It's a lot harder too.
Yeah, you can't now with 2 restaurants be literally 2 places at once. The other thing too, kind of that I feel like pretty passionately about the restaurant industry is that I feel like, and obviously feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it's very glamorized. The whole idea of having a restaurant is sexy and cool and very glamorized. There's no other way to put it, which it absolutely is. But I think the thing people don't understand is that it's really freaking hard work and long hours, nights and weekends. Right?
Absolutely,
So when you say you like pretty much lived there, it's like, that's what you have to do. You have to put in the work, you know? And we both grew up in that sort of like lifestyle, seeing our dads do that. And I feel like that's one thing where I'm like, when people that aren't in the restaurant industry or aren't familiar and decide they want to start their own concept, I'm like, okay, buckle up, I don't know. Do you feel that way?
I would typically advise against that.
Just like your dad did to you, my dad did to me, right? Like, or your parents. Maybe look at something else, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the only reason I'm able to do it is because of the desire to cook and to continue creating. And if I didn't have that, but that's how I identify with the restaurants. Everybody else has their own kind of way they, justify it or are passionate about it.
Right.
Some people, it's about creating a concept and bringing it to life. But then once you've done that, then it just becomes the everyday work and the everyday running a business or a team or a restaurant or whatever, however you want to look at it. So, it's kind of comes down to what drives you once you've got it.
For sure.
Once you've built your dream.
Right. So you've had Annex now for about 6 years-ish, 5 years-ish. Until you decide to open number 2.
Yes. Yeah. It's hard because that COVID was in there, so you forget when you made that decision because
right?
Yeah, because we opened Annex in 2015. COVID happened in so it was about four or so years. And I started talking about Annesso. And then I was like, all right, let's do it. And then we signed the lease, and then COVID happened. I'm like, all right, well, how's this going to work?
Yeah, so true. I remember that.
And and then there was a little COVID delay in there, but I think we opened about 6 years after.
I think people were ready. Like, I remember when you opened, it was like, okay.
We just opened just in the nick of time.
Yeah.
We threaded the needle between, complete shutdown and people starting to feel comfortable without
Right.
6 feet apart and all that stuff. So
I know. And I think I remember at the time feeling like, okay, everybody's ready to like
Mm-hmm.
get back to not normal, but pre-COVID days, if you
Mm-hmm.
will, whatever that looked like. So that's cool. And Annesso is Autobahn and Bryant,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
So a little different part of town.
Yeah.
So the thought was, strategically kind
Mm-hmm.
of switching up the area, I imagine, right?
Yeah, I mean, the thought started with pizza. It just started with, okay, I want to do a pizza place. I want to do some form of a pizzeria. And when I decided that, I also wanted to have it be available for lunch. And in order to do that, we needed a nice central location, and that's how we ended up where we're at now.
Yeah, love it. So great. So many things. So I did you ever entertain the idea of doing lunch at Annex? Sure, people have asked.
In the conceptual stages, I was thinking about doing lunch because I thought, well, that's what restaurants do. They're open for lunch and dinner. That's what
Yeah.
you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
And so, but the trying to get it open and trying to hire and trying to train was looked so challenging. And trying to operate 2 day parts seemed very challenging. So I thought to myself, all right, I'm going to open for dinner, and then maybe we'll do lunch later. But dinner turned out to be good enough to where we didn't have to, we didn't really have to open for lunch.
Yeah,
and
amazing.
It also allow us to just simplify and focus on doing a good dinner service and
Which you
be happy
do.
with that.
Yeah,
So.
and love the seasonal menu changes, which is so cool. And you have different local you're very thoughtful about your menu and tying in some local brands and produce and farms, and that's really special. Fresno State annual tea, I dream of it. That's amazing. But just one example of how you've done that for both concepts, really. So as chef and owner of both concepts, how do you manage your time? What does that look like?
Yeah. When we opened Annex, it was just one. So
Yeah.
I was there most nights, just kind of micromanaging one dinner service. And that was fun, but if we were to grow, I had to allow somebody else to do that. Which is also fun because now it's more of a mentoring role for me. And so I spend my time bouncing around and coaching and making sure not only that that we're doing things the way we're supposed to be doing. So I'm instead of watching every single plate that comes out of the kitchen, which is impossible to do now, I'm trying to coach others on how to do that.
That's a really mature response because I feel like as an entrepreneur or as a business owner, delegation's at the top of the list for the most challenging thing for people to do, right? Because it's just so much easier if I just do it and I'm used to doing it and it's quicker and all the things. So being able to kind of see it more as a mentorship opportunity is a really positive and cool way to think about it. Have you found any tips for fellow entrepreneurs of okay, this really helped me in mentoring my management team, or I learned the hard way that X doesn't work, any advice you have for them in mentorship?
Well, I think when it comes to mentoring, I think it's just about who you're mentoring. So it has to start the person that you're mentoring or managing or whatever, however you want to look at it. That person has to fit. That person has to be the right fit for what you're looking for them to do, and they need to understand themselves enough to know that they want to do what it is they've signed up to do. And so that's more than half the battle, I would say, is having the right person to mentor.
Right. And so, and then, being able to put the time in to mentor them. I feel like that's a huge piece, right?
Right.
So with Annex being dinner, Well, now it's probably different because I feel like Annex is very much like a well-oiled machine. Like you probably don't have to go there as much, right?
I mean, Annex is dinner only 5 nights a week, and Annesso is lunch and dinner 7 days a week.
I know,
so
right?
that's 7 times 2. So that's 14 shifts a week, whereas Annex is 5 shifts a week. So by default, I probably spend more time at Annesso at this point.
Right.
And Annex, we have been doing it for 8.5 years. So we have it. It is pretty dialed in, but we also don't want to rest on our laurels, and we also are continuing to develop and create new dishes, and we're always trying to get better. So I do spend a decent amount of time there as well. But sorry, I forgot what the question was.
No, that's good. I was just wondering, like, how do you spend your time?
Yeah.
So you just kind of look at the week each week, and right?
Sometimes the week, sometimes the day. I wish, and Jenny, I'm sure wishes that I could have.
Jenny's like, where are you going to be today?
Her whole thing is, in all the years we've been married, there's not been one week where you have been able to plan ahead and tell me I'm going to be home on X night. So
that's funny.
I'm trying to get better at that because the week, and not, obviously with the kids at their age, it's like I'm just constantly juggling and running around. But it would be nice to line up my week. And sometimes I'm able to and say, all right, this is what I'm going to do. But sometimes things come up and, I have to do this or that or swing by a restaurant or whatever it may be.
With 2 kiddos and all the activities and all the things, I feel like you're flexible with your time. I feel like you're present. You go to the things.
I do. I go to the things.
Yeah. The golf tournaments and all the things.
Yeah.
Are you a morning person? I don't know if I've ever asked you that.
What is a morning person? I don't know.
Like somebody who can function and enjoys the morning.
I think I am a morning person.
You are?
I am. I mean, I'm also, I don't know. I mean, I think that, I've always been more of a night owl because that's the way the restaurant has kind of trained me to be. But I think I'm becoming more of a morning person because now that my focus is less running a service and more just planning and organizing and managing and doing all that, I get some of my best thinking done in the morning and work done in the morning so I can really get my day where it needs to be. So I am kind of a morning person. I'm not a 5 a.m.,
cray before the sun
kind of a person, but I do like to get going in the morning.
What do you do to like manage your stress? Do you work out?
I think exercise is. I'm one of those people that has to like exercise to manage stress because it's like I'm just kind of a busybody.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably one of the biggest things.
Yeah.
And then just try to every once in a while we try to get out of town. Just take a little weekend off and escape and unplug. Reset
for sure.
And so I think those are a couple of big things.
And when you're not working, you golf, obviously. You enjoy golf. And do you golf with Preston a lot? I mean, he plays and has his tournaments and stuff.
Yeah, so I do. He plays, and we live close to the course, so I'll take him out there for a couple hours. He's like, all right, I'm going to hit 50 balls and play 3 holes today. I'm like, all right, if that's what you want to do.
He sets the tone. I love it.
Yeah, he's like, all right, I'm like, all right, well, you could hit 70 balls if you want. But no, but
he sets the number.
He sets
cute.
the tone. He's really enjoying it, and that's my favorite sport. And so, yeah, we definitely play a few holes together, and it's a nice little thing that we got going.
So home life. My dad used to always get this question as a chef growing up, and now I'm going to ask you the question, which is, your profession is being in the kitchen for others. Do you cook at home?
Yeah, I do.
I
do. More so on my days off that I'm not going into the restaurant, just because I have more time to shop or to do this or whatever it is. And with family now, it's more I have my staples that I go to at home now, and that the kids like.
Right. That's half the battle.
Because before it would be, I can just cook whatever I feel like cooking and get really creative and do this and that. But now it's like I could spend 4 hours on a dish and they'll just, push it back in my face and like, oh man, defeated.
Totally.
You guys are harder than the general population out there.
Guess. Yeah.
So, but their palates are starting to open up a little more, which is great. But I do cook at home.
On days off.
On days off.
You and Jenny used to do more together. I told her recently, Umami and Us needs to come back.
I know. That was a lot of fun.
I loved that. For a while, for those that aren't familiar, Jimmy and Jenny had a blog kind of sorts, a media format where they shared recipes, cooked together, included the kids in that. I mean, to this day, Alicia and I still make quite a few of those recipes, and
well,
we have
great
them
to know.
saved. Yeah, I literally
awesome.
told Jenny recently, I'm like, you got to bring it back.
I
know,
know.
in your spare time, you have all that spare time. I know you have a lot going on, but so that's cool. You're able to. Do you involve the kids in making the meals?
A little bit,
yeah.
Sometimes. I mean, I think Jenny definitely cooks with them more, involves them more, and like they make a lot of cookies together. And
Cute.
It's actually funny. Preston has been doing this thing where he goes to the library at school, and everybody goes to the library once a week in school, right? And so the kids get to check out a book or this or that. And in past years, he's just kind of checked out random books that he's whatever he wants.
Yeah.
But this year, what he's been doing. And I'm like, oh God, here we go. But he's been checking out books on like states. So he'll bring home Ohio one week, and he'll bring home Nevada one week. And in every book, there's a recipe for that state. And he writes out the recipe.
Stop.
And he's been convincing Jenny that we have to make all these recipes together. So
that's so cute. I love
they're
that.
doing a state recipe, every week. And
I didn't know a
like,
state
oh boy.
had a recipe. I'm curious what California's would be.
I think he just checked out California, and I want to say it was a salsa.
Some salsa.
Some salsa,
okay.
yeah.
Fine.
I'm like,
great.
But
I
it
love
was,
it.
God, what did
so
he do?
he's curious.
Yeah, he's really into that right now.
Well,
so.
you and Jenny both are. So I feel like it's in their blood, whether it becomes a profession or not, He has an interest in it. That's sweet.
He does.
What about Chloe? Is she into...
Chloe likes, she'll get her hands dirty.
Yeah, cute.
She's more of an artist. She's more of a drawer and a painter. And
love it.
That's her forte.
Love it. Sweet. So juggling work life, dad life, husband life, all the things. What advice do you have for people who are in similar shoes as you? Maybe they have a passion for food, they have a passion for cooking, but they're not really sure where to start, or they're considering starting their own restaurant. What would you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that working in a restaurant, it really will tell you kind of if you want to be in that business or not. So if you want to own a restaurant, whether it's coming from the bar side, the front of the house service side, or the back of the house service side, I would say get a job at a restaurant. Try to get a job at a restaurant that you really admire, because I think a lot of people, people like the Annex or Annesso, and they're like, oh, I love your spot. I come to eat all the time. Can I get a job? And sometimes it works, but sometimes they come behind the curtain and they're like, oh man, all that stuff that's being orchestrated out in the dining room and coming out of the kitchen, there's a lot more that goes into it than, say, the glamorousness that you were talking about earlier. It's actually... So, I mean, I think you'll know whether the lifestyle's for you, if you're willing to get in there and put in the work for a restaurant that you admire, for an extended period of time,
That's good advice, because I think like anything, experience is key, right? Like you have an idea. I remember when I moved to LA and I was living there and doing all the things in the entertainment world, I thought I would be the editor of a magazine. That was like the goal. And then I started working for one. Yeah. And not that I don't want to, it wasn't I realized there were some parts of it that I didn't love that I thought I would, like anything, right? You have to try it to see if it's the right fit for you. Otherwise, how are you going to know? Yeah. So that's good advice.
Yeah. I mean, I think when I graduated from college, I was like, oh, I'm going to open a, restaurant one day or this or that. And I started doing, and, I was smart enough to back off and not do it without first working in one, because when I became a chef or started on that career, it was probably a lot harder than I thought it would be, you know, but also rewarding. And I was like, all right, I do love it enough to keep going. But I think that, get in there and do it.
Love it. No, that's great advice. So you mentioned your love for Italian food. Obviously you are Italian, but you have gone, I didn't know you went abroad and studied in Italy. What part of Italy?
Florence.
Very cool. Do you go back often? I mean, you guys just...
Yeah, we were just there this summer.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I'd been since before we opened Annex.
Okay.
Just because of all the life that's happened between now and then. But we were able to take the kids, which was great. And it was able to reignite a lot of that. You know, you go there and you remember all the things that you experienced. And, but yeah, I lived in Florence in college, and then I took several trips after to Italy, and
love it. So you think kind of big picture, next steps for the brands in your career. You think you'll stay in the Italian avenue there?
Yeah, I think that I will always want to be in the Italian avenue, because there's so much to the world of Italian food, and there's so much that I've yet to kind of take on. There's more that I have yet to learn about certain, because it's so regional. And there's different styles and techniques and types of cuisines in different regions. And so I think that I'll always, and just my passion for Italy is just, that's what drives me. So I think that I'll always want to be in that lane. That's not to say I might not want to do something else, because I love other kinds of food and cooking, and I do love other elements of the restaurant business. But I think the Italian thing will always be there.
Love it. Makes sense. Did you know, by the way, that our family has a exhibit at the Italian Heritage Museum at the fair?
Oh my God. You're shaming me right now, because I think I did hear something about that, and I haven't been to go see it.
I know. Well, I took pictures also.
Oh, okay.
That
should be.
Yeah.
Suffice.
But it was cool. I mean, I learned a lot about our heritage that I didn't know.
I think I had seen a few pictures, but I
think
do
between
need to.
Our dads and Uncle Peter, you know how every family has certain people that are very into the family history,
genealogy focused.
Yeah, that would be Uncle Peter.
Yes.
So I think between all of them, they put the pieces together, and there were some really cool photos. So I'll share them with you.
Awesome.
It was cool. Yeah,
that'd be great.
Did you go back to where any of the family was or lived when you went to Italy?
God, no. I mean, I remember, my uncle on my mom's side, he took me to Italy once, and we visited his side of the family.
I feel like I remember seeing pictures of that.
And that was really fun.
Yeah.
And so I have visited them, but that was many years ago. I'm not in touch with them, but I remember my parents took me to Italy when I was in high school, and we rented a car, and my aunt was with us, and we're just my dad's side is from Lucca, and we're just driving around. I want to say your grandpa maybe gave him a name or an address, or we're just driving around aimlessly. That was before,
before
asking everybody
navigation.
That was before navigation. So you're asking some guy whose language you don't even speak, where is the number, where does this address exist? And they're like pointing you around a turn, and then you ask another person, they're pointing you. We never connected.
Well, you tried.
We were trying to just show up at someone's house and be like, we're Pardini's from Fresno. Are you Pardini?
Yeah. I love it. Do you speak Italian?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I speak decent. I studied it all 4 years in college and studied abroad there, so I can definitely get by.
Right.
I wouldn't call myself fluent, but I can get by.
When in college, I had to, you could test out of a language. I don't know, you guys probably could too, right? Like, if you took, like I took Spanish in high school, I technically could have tested out and just box checked, did that. But I decided to take Italian. And I mean, I could understand it, and I know like the basics of the pronunciation, but I definitely cannot speak it. And I kind of don't you feel like the more you use it,
you have to be using it,
right?
I felt like, because I was there for 4 months, and I was really starting to get good at the end, but I had to get home for the next semester in order to graduate on time.
Yeah.
And I felt
Minor
obligated to
detail.
do that with LMU tuition.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, but I felt like if I had had a year, that would have really been what I needed. But yeah.
So at LMU, was it a thing to go abroad? Like most people didn't?
I don't know. I mean, for me, I didn't know a ton of people that did. I knew from my Italian classes, I had, a good handful of us went. But as far as a lot of my other friends, I think some went during the summer or this or that, but there wasn't a huge percentage, I feel, that were going for a semester.
Same. Like at SC, it was not that. I mean, people did. I shouldn't say that, but it wasn't as popular as other schools. Like I've heard at Boulder, it's like you go abroad. I think it's like your spring semester, sophomore year or something. It's a thing. But it wasn't that way at LMU. You just kind of decided you wanted to do it.
Yeah, it was on my radar.
Did you go with a friend
beginning.
or did you just
No.
That's cool.
Just kind of went solo. Yeah,
That's
I did
awesome.
have a friend who was in my class, but he was in, I think, either a different school in Florence or in Rome at the time. There may have been one other person from my class that I knew there, but I had a few people that I knew, but I didn't have a buddy that I was going there.
That's
with.
cool. You just decided you were going to do it.
Yeah.
Love it. So fast forward, you've been back in Fresno now. Let me count. 15 years?
Yeah, it's been about 12.
12.
Yeah.
12. Family's rooted here. Kids are growing older. Jenny's very much rooted here and involved in our community. You both are. It's amazing. What do you see as maybe the next step for your career?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a chef. I'm pretty, I like food. I like creating new things. So I think that I want to keep doing that.
Very cool.
And, I think for us, the step to open Annesso was a natural step, an organic step, because the team was ready. I had people that wanted to move up and become chefs or GMs or what have you. So I think going forward, we'll want to probably do something else. And I think that it'll be, when the team is ready and when these guys feel like they're ready to take on new challenges as well. So it's a combination of what I'm interested in doing and what the team really wants to do, and how much they want to take on. So
yeah, that's a big factor, right? Capacity.
Yeah.
Well, I think I can speak for a lot of people when I say thank you for bringing these concepts to Fresno, because I feel like they're amazing and you bring so much value and just elevated experiences on so many fronts with your concepts. So I'm grateful. And thank you for being here. This was fun.
Yeah, it was great to be here.
Just chatting.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jimmy.
All right.
Have a good one.
Thanks, Ray.
Thanks for listening. Feel free to rate and review this episode here and connect with us on Instagram if you have any thoughts, questions, or any guest suggestions. Thanks.